Yo, what is going on, guys? Alex7 here. Welcome back to another Test Drive Unlimited Solo Crown video. Today, I'm going over all of your worries about TDU SC because I did ask you on Twitter and Reddit to list down some of your worries and stuff about TDU SC, and I'll respond to them kind of in a video. So here we are. This is the video. Now let's actually check out what you guys had to say. Okay, so starting off on Reddit, guys, this is where I originally asked you, and I even gave you some of my worries as well, such as houses not being present, small lobbies. I really hope to see, for example, at least 12-player race lobbies or 16-player free roam, something like that. Another delay into Q1, Q2 2024. Low-key is a worry of mine. I still think late 2023 is when they're going to target it, but that doesn't mean I can't be worried for another delay to Q1, Q2 2024. Now another one, and this isn't really a worry, and I did talk about it literally in the text, but it's more of a preference. But please, KT, I definitely want to see above 180 degree steering animation, such in games like Driver San Francisco. You guys remember that game, and I'm sure a lot of you remember that game actually. But the steering wheel animation was more than 180, and KT to have something like that in an open world racer, believe it or not, it'd be the first open world racer game to actually have steering animation above 180. So KT, fingers crossed, as you said yourselves, this is a driving game, not a racing. So come on, I want to see it. And last but not least, something along the lines of a community racing center, because stuff like that actually, if believe it or not, it does carry the game's post content life, because it adds replayability for people like the community to add on to the game, be able to share money, be able to bet money on yourself, earn money, send a fee, stuff like that. It was such a great feature and way ahead of its time. So I really hope something along those lines of the community racing center does make it back, because like I said, the thing is, TDU does have a very large potential for post-launch content. It's only up to KT to do it right. And if you've been following my channel recently, stuff like the physics, maps, anything like that is not on my radar at all, because we've kind of already heard a lot of great news from Anjanu talking about the game so far. But let's take a look at your worries, guys. I'm gonna scroll down here, start off with Harris Lamb. Okay, so Harris does have a very good point, something I picked up as well. Houses, he said he wants it done to at least GTA 5's level of detail. It's a huge part of the game for me. I do understand that it is a lot of work, so KT, I really hope we could do something like that. Interactive shops, and if the feature will exist, and a variety of them. So dealerships, I'm pretty sure dealerships were confirmed so far, but the barbershop, car wash, because we're in a certain time and age, I don't think something of that sort is gonna come in the same way it was in Test Drive Unlimited 2. Maybe just like a GTA 5 car wash where you literally just put your car through the drive-through, something like that. I would agree with. Gas station fuel mode, if it is in TDC, that would be a very nice thing. And clothing stores, I think, are probably on the more likely side, especially along with the barbershop. Although the barbershop, depending on how they do character customization, I would love to see the surgeon return and the barbershop, so I kind of understand that as well. Now, outdoor interactive areas, so gas stations, parking lots, scenic areas. For me, I wouldn't say this is really a worry, but it's something that they can definitely expand on. So parking lots, being able to have a car meet and just come out your car, similar to how Test Drive Unlimited 2, if you did an online multiplayer lobby, you can walk around the road and take a look at everyone else's cars, even sit in them, turn them on and rev them. So parking lots would make a lot more sense to do something like that. Fingers crossed. I'm sure, I really hope KT adds something like that. Repetitive generic backdrop, one of the screenshots there, oh, it's on the same, it's on this screenshot, I'll pop up on the screen right now. And a lot of the buildings are repeating. Now, I only assume that this is an alpha, so they haven't really done such. But at the same time, in order to make a building realistic or to have it to its counterpart, they actually have to have the license to put the building in the game. So I guess different generic buildings is what he's talking about. But I do think it can easily be fixed by just having different generic background buildings. So fingers crossed it's just an alpha gameplay and KT can fix that. So next, he does talk about transparency of progress and delays. Not gonna lie to you, as I did say, I do kind of have a worry about the game getting delayed into early 2024. But in terms of transparency, I don't think we're actually gonna get it until spring when they're ready to show off the game. Because at the same time, there are a lot of eyes on this, and even if we show alpha, I mean, you guys have even seen the reactions to GTA 6 when it leaked. So many people said, yo, this is looking trash, these are the graphics, come on. Guys, game development is not an easy thing, bro. So seeing how the community react to that thing, I don't think we're actually gonna be seeing anything for a while. Again, spring and then actual gameplay in summer, I think is ideal, but guessing on this game is a bit too hard right now. But moving on, we got Avandine. I'm probably not going to say any of your names correctly, but he does talk about he agrees with all the concerns, especially houses. And apart from his biggest concern is the story, he said the whole Sharps versus Street narrative may push the game in a direction that isn't TDU. Now, he does say TDU doesn't need a narrative, and that's why I love TDU 1 so much. You're just a person who had ample savings to fly to Hawaii and start new, and once you get there, you just had enough to set up and earn more. So that's understandable. I do kind of see where you guys are coming from with the Streets versus Sharps, and it actually depends on how they incorporate this into the game, because it can be cringe and it can be corny depending on how they do it. But if they do it along the lines of just basically a club versus club scenario, you could kind of tie that into Test Drive Unlimited 2, but we don't need any of that cheesiness in all honesty. So it's going to be an interesting way to how we have it. But the good thing I would say is that this is obviously going to be a more mature game marketed to a more mature audience. So the storyline I'm not that worried on, especially for the Streets versus Sharps, because in a case like Forza Horizon, you know, it's a generally massive audience difference between the two. So there is that. But scrolling down, let's see what else we got. What's the grind for cars? This was actually already answered in a developer interview where Alan actually said that the cars are too easy to get and you want it to be hard. You actually have to earn your vehicle, so that is good. And you can even see someone already replied there. That's pretty good. Next we got Sokka. You're gonna go the Need for Speed route and give us Lego toys instead of cars. Now, I'm not too certain what Sokka is talking about here, but I'm pretty sure this also kind of ties in to the dev interview, especially stuff like seeing million parts of upgrades. I don't think that ever was TDU, and based on the interviews, that definitely sounds like they're not going to go in that direction. So I don't think we're going to get anything like that. But I think a key point is he does say he doesn't want style, not kiddish like Need for Speed or nerdgasm like Gran Turismo. I do understand that point at the end though. So there's that. Being a Forza clone, again, highly doubt, especially with the past interviews. Houses, we got Remarkable Links talking about this. And I've already kind of gone over houses, so I'm not going to touch on that again. But the map, he does think it's going to get repetitive and boring considerable like it is Forza Horizon. Now, the thing is, you cannot compare Forza Horizon map as a base of what we're going to be getting in TDSC, simply because Forza Horizon is such a vast change in map dynamics than TDU. For example, the lane width, that alone breaks the immersion so far, and being able to drive off-road in a supercar at a pretty damn high speed, stuff like that, believe it or not, breaks the immersion of the map and the replayability of the map way more than a lot of us think. So if Forza Horizon even cut those two things, I'm sure the map would actually be a lot better. However, stuff like an actual city that is missing in Forza Horizon, we never actually got a one-to-one scale at that size with that level of detail. So for KT to bring in this new map, yeah, it might be very much slightly smaller than Forza Horizon 5. However, it has double the roads, more roads than Ibiza, so it definitely has that quality of life. But I can see where you guys are coming from. At the end of the day, you kind of really can't say anything until you see gameplay, which fingers crossed is gonna happen next year summer. Now, I kind of don't agree with the progression thing, because I found that progression in Test Drive was, you know, pretty good so far. The only thing I would point out is TD2's progression and endgame content was kind of lacking, but that's only because Atari pulled the plug. I'm pretty sure if we actually had the opportunity to get a lot more DLCs and stuff out of the game, I don't think endgame content would have been an issue. But of course, because Atari pulled the plug, you know, it's kind of hard to do something like that. Being emotionless like TDU2, I'm not sure what that one is about. However, good car sounds and non-arcade physics. So again, physics have already been touched, but sounds, I do want to agree, because if we're being honest here, KT's WRC generations, there are a few issues with sounds in the game. But I do want to probably stress that having a yearly release game compared to a game that is going to have a ton of development from start to finish, fingers crossed KT definitely have sounds down in TDU SC. So again, more comments about the physics, which again, we've already covered in the TDU SC recent developer interviews. The car roster seems quite small this far. Well, I mean, the game is set to launch in more than a year away, so we're not going to get the full car list yet. But I do assume we're going to get classics, slower cars, guys, supercars, all of that. This is hard. We don't want to give away the full car list. The game is over a year away from launch, possibly, I should say as well. When you take a look at this comment here, he does highlight something like in a dev interview when they were talking, Alan was playing with an Xbox controller instead of a wheel, I mean, like, it is a dev build, guys. They're not going to be test driving on a wheel yet, right? It doesn't, when you're doing stuff like that, controller, it's totally fine. You don't need to have a wheel 100% of the time. At that point, I think it's just nitpicking at worries. But again, I mean, all of the dev interviews we've had so far has definitely highlighted the fact that we're going to be getting sim physics. So I do think there's that. And we have someone else that is also talking about a delay into 2024. So understood, houses, multiplayer being seamless, so I do agree with that. I really do hope launch, but it's always hard to get launch of a game right for online. More map size stuff, which again is hard to really relay the information to you. I've already done a video literally going in such great detail of Hong Kong Island. I'll link it down in the description below if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, because I do think it'll help you a lot on your decision. But again, it's hard to really say until we really get gameplay, but I think a 1-to-1 scale map is going to do a lot more justice than we actually think until we see it. So there is that. Another comment about progression, so there's that. Again, we've already gone over that. A full-blown browser in game, that's not really a worry. That is more of a a request, I would say, not really a worry, because when have we ever really gotten that in a game before? Clutch and H shift to support. So what I do want to highlight about this is that in TDU 1, what I do like is that if you had A shifter on and clutch, depending on whatever car you were driving, it would actually automatically switch to that vehicle. If you were in a Lamborghini, for example, say Aventador, you could use your paddle shifters, but obviously it doesn't have an H shifter, so you can't use it. However, if you did have, for example, a Subaru STI and it had obviously an H shifter in it, it did work with a clutch. And the same thing would happen if you swapped back to a car that uses paddle shifters. It automatically did it for you. So that is a very key feature I hope we do see, because I do not like having to go to the menus and switch every time I switch between an H shifter car or a paddle shifter vehicle. So there are those two things I hope KT add in, as it wasn't Test Drive Limited 1. So stuff like unknown open world issues from the KT engine, online lobbies, AI car behaviors, poor wheel support, all pretty fair worries as well. So this is more of, you know, we're gonna have to wait until launch until we find this out. These are pretty fair, especially the unknown open world issues from the KT engine. Like I said, guys, this is KT's first open world game, their first TDU game. A lot of this is going to be starting from scratch, so a lot of these features is going to be a lot of, you know, working down on the bugs. And I really do hope they have the bug thing down, because it is hard to fix it once launch comes. There's always going to be bugs that you're going to have to say, you know what, we can't fix this, let's move on. And it happens in games all the time. So I really hope that KT has this down, and that's probably why they delayed the game as well. You really have to make sure this game comes out with literally near perfectness. So KT, I know you guys are watching this, seeing everyone's worries. I hope you guys are taking notes, and I can't wait to see more information. Now, another point brings up the Forza Horizon fanboys, and this kind of does make slight sense. I can see why you guys would think that this would kind of ruin the game. And it's why you have to have community managers. I mean, the Discord for TDU, I think they've seen a lot of us personally top, because there's not a lot of Forza Horizon people are going to be in that Discord server this early on. So getting our feedback early, I think, was very key, and it's probably why they made the Discord anyways, to at least get our feedback. So there is that. But Saka does bring up a pretty good point here as well. And move on, just some more stuff about the map size. And he does say TDC is bigger than what you find in Forza Horizon, but isn't saying much. Again, it's more of the road network, and it's hard to compare, because Forza Horizon is missing a city, narrow roads, the fact that you could drive off-road in a supercar. The map is kind of bare bones as well. So it's a massive difference going between Hong Kong Island and Forza Horizon 5's map. You can't really compare it and say that because A is small and B is also small. You know, there's more to it than just saying something is small. And you know, you guys get what I'm saying. Okay, but I also asked the same thing on Twitter, and we have you on here talking about driving physics and lack of an airport, so we can't travel to Ibiza or Oahu. Well, you want bad news for you, my friend. Oahu and Ibiza are not going to be coming into this game at all. And I doubt we're going to see them until at least a sequel to the game. I don't think even a DLC map is something that is possible, which is why they probably didn't care about the airport. But driving physics is pretty good news, because we've already gotten some information about it being sim-based. Now, more peaceful game when you're talking about you won't get the PS5 in time. DJ Customs bring up a pretty good point about how the game is going to hold on to people 1 to 2 months after release. Now, this is something I do want to talk about, because Test Drive Unlimited does have a very big difference between Need for Speed and Forza Horizon. The post-launch content can be a lot more contentful, if you guys get what I'm saying, than the other games, simply because you can add dealerships. All of these things that TDU has, you can easily add more content, adding other dealerships, expanding the map from within, adding new barbershops, new points of interest, new races around the island, guys, new houses, for example, adding new playable spaces, new card packs. There's actually a ton of things that I think that KT can add post-launch to TDU SC that can hold a lot of players for a while. That's the difference, I think, that games like Forza Horizon and Need for Speed can't really do. They can't really add points of entrance per se. They can add new events and stuff like that, but so can Need for Speed. But the difference between TDU is they have an arsenal of points of interest that they can add into the game, from dealerships, like I've said already, houses, and that's exactly what EA Games wanted to do with Test Drive Unlimited 2. And if you guys have been watching my videos, you'll know that, because there are a ton of content that was cut until Atari said, you know what, EA Games, it's time to go. Next we got Ethan, and they talk about their biggest worry, saying that despite all the reassurances about density and diversity, he thinks he won't be able to lose himself in the map like he did with bigger maps, and noise and carless as well. So he's confident houses will be a thing, so that's pretty good. But we're gonna have to wait and see for houses, guys, again. But as for the map, I kind of already went over this. It's hard to tell until we see some gameplay. We got Levi talking about the graphics department. Personally, I think the alpha screenshots are pretty damn good so far. But, you know, what it's gonna look like when come launch, I'm not sure. But I think the new version of this KT engine is looking pretty damn well, especially looking back at KT's WRC generations graphically. It's such an improvement from the previous WRC 10, so seeing them go from that big of a jump, and I'm really excited to see what they have for TDSC and the jump they make from generations to TDSC as well. Another one is absolutely no gameplay less than 6 months before release. I'm not sure if they're talking about this year or last year, but I only assume, especially with the way games have been going recently and looking at Need for Speed's marketing, I don't think we're going to be getting this gameplay before 6 months before release type of thing anymore, guys. I do think TDU is still going to show us gameplay in the summer, but having condensed content to hype the game up, I think is something that's going to stick with the gaming world for a while. Other than that, we got more stuff about housing, real estate, car sales and houses. So I think car sales and houses are literally one of the biggest things. And again, physics, I'm pretty sure, again, we're going to be going for something more on the sim side. Neural roads, I do think we're going to be getting to. More stuff about the cringe gang story upon us. I don't really see the gang story between Streets and Sharp, so there's that. Looking at WC Generations, I'm worried about the graphics and the car 3D modeling. Personally, I disagree for the graphics wise. The car models, I'm not really looking that deep into it, but I assume for a game like TDU, when you're walking around the car, it makes sense to make sure that these cars are looking good. But I do disagree about the graphics for WC Generations. I think it looks pretty damn good. Next got Nikki talking about multiple ways to progress in the open world. That also makes sense because previous TDUs, you did have test drive jobs, stunts. I'm gonna say no, because that's more getting into the arcade space, but time trials, delivery jobs, races, test drive jobs, I would agree with as well. Some more classic cars, I would agree. Being too ambitious for such a small studio, Mr. 80YT, that is true. But at the same time, if no studios are ambitious, we wouldn't really be getting games like this at all. So it's not wrong to be ambitious for a small studio. You just have to make sure you put your directions in line. But at the same time, what do I know about game development? I'm not a game developer. And that's talking about stuff like TDU features lacking, such as houses, dealerships, clubs, community racing center as well. I would agree. Loss of identity to appeal to a broader audience. I also, again, siding with the dev interviews, I think they're not really trying to go along that way. Some more stuff about delays as well we have here. I'm not sure what that part is, but houses, again, another great point, guys. I've already brought that up. And car models, houses. So I think literally houses is the main thing that everyone's bringing up. Houses and car sounds. Apart from that, it's just, you know, some small stuff. But KT, you've heard it here. Majority of us have been asking for houses and car sounds. I think those are the most important things that you guys have all been talking about. Pretty much literally everything is sound and houses, graphics, sound and houses, physics. Again, we've already heard dev interviews, but car sounds and houses, We're gonna have to wait and see, guys. Hopefully we find out sooner rather than later, but don't expect to get any information, I think, until spring, and even after that, summer. So we got a long way to go, but this year is almost done, thankfully. And if you guys did enjoy this video, leave a like down below and subscribe for more TDC content. You already know what it is, guys. I'm Alex7, and I'm out, guys. Peace.